Okay, so, interesting. Wait, how do you have steady stance too, but you don't have 3? Oh no. Who did you kill for this? BK? No. I cannot swim. Nice, dude. Cool, man. I'm gonna assume that you're new because I see tier 4, I see Camilla, and you don't have a build on her except reposition, and that's fine. If you like Camilla a lot, her Brave Axe is actually not a good weapon on her. I definitely recommend that you switch it to Slaying Axe on her or Emerald Axe. Both are good options. I feel like Slaying Axe is a little bit better nowadays because it can be refined with resistance, defense, or speed, depending on what you want to do. Personally, I feel like speed is pretty good if you're gonna run on a flyer team, which you should. Camilla's really good on flyer teams with flyer buffs. Fill up your team with a bunch of gold flyers. It comes off Pala. For the A slot, you can run something like Fury or Distant Counter. Distant Counter is definitely pretty rare, but you could try to get it off the current Hector banner. Probably gonna cost you over 100 orbs to try to pull for Hector though, so be careful. Don't do that unless Camilla is like literally waifu, like favorite character in the game. That's the only reason I would definitely recommend rolling for Hector if you wanted to invest strongly into Camilla. Otherwise, you can run with the Fury, 3 in the A slot, gold flyers, support from other flyer users. Shido's a good example of this. In your B slot, you can run something like Axe Breaker or Green Tome Breaker. Probably something like Hidden Run or Drag Back are also pretty good to give you lots of mobility that flyers have. As for the special, I highly recommend changing that up to Iceberg. Or actually, looks like you have a plus defense Camilla. Bonfire here is your best choice. It just comes from Robin or Adeltiki. So change the axe to Slaying Axe. You can get this off of a Hawkeye at 4-star, upgrade it to 5-star, refine his killer axe to a Slaying Axe, and that's my preferred option. Or you could get Emerald Axe off Arthur. Hopefully you took some notes there, and that's my recommendations for you. So Camilla, I'd consider that as like non-meta, to be honest, not meta. So I'm gonna look at some meta flyers next. At this point, I think I actually consider Shida to be meta. To be honest, I think she's really powerful now. JK Law says Shida is useless unless she has Distant Counter. I don't really necessarily agree with that though. I think with Wing Sword now being a thing, you don't need to run Distant Counter and you can actually use her as a player phase unit now. There's some merit to be said about that. First thing I'm definitely going to recommend for you is once you get Flashing Blade on the Wing Sword, Moonbow becomes really good with Desperation. You basically Moonbow, charge it, and activate it right away, but if you don't have that refinement yet, then you have to change Moonbow into Luna for the time being, because with Moonbow, you're wasting your Desperation procs. Hopefully you just wait until Wing Sword gets refined with Flashing Blade. You have to change out Moonbow for 3 to 2. 1 and then 1 ready. The speed seal is okay. It's pretty good with that Desperation, and I'm happy that you chose, like, you just kept 4 to 5 flyers. So Fury's fine here. She could use all the stats. Another option is going to be like Swift Sparrow, especially once you get Wing Sword refined. It's not too bad. With Wing Sword and Flashing Blade, Swift Sparrow is pretty good as well. It gives you some more attack and speed that you need on the player phase. She becomes a pretty good player phase unit, so that's another option. But Fury gives you some enemy phase utility as well, so I think I'm okay with that. Overall, I think this is good, but just to be sure, I'm gonna compare your Shida with another one on our list. Thanks again, Shade. I think your build is fine. Just make sure you change the special. Let's look at another Shida for comparison. Exemplars Shida. Pretty similar to yours actually, but the difference here is actually I don't recommend Glacies. Okay, I think Glacies is okay, but you're using it every second fight. So I guess if you're okay with that crazy burst damage every second fight, it's pretty good. Moonbow procs on every fight with Desperation, but Glacies procs on every second fight. So this is your other option. Thanks to Exemplar. Exemplar, can you just confirm you're here? Just say like, hi, this is my Shida. But yeah, like this is basically the more extreme burst damage example here. Iceberg is better to work on all fights. That's not true, Lack and Whale. In Desperation range, actually, you miss your Iceberg. So like in Desperation range, you hit with Iceberg, you lose 2 charges, and the second hit gets Iceberg ready. But what happens is, because of Desperation, they retaliate on you, and then you've wasted your special. So Glacies has the exact same effect as that. Whereas Moonbow or Glimmer would proc every fight because you Flashing Blade, you charge it with Flashing Blade, and then you hit with it right away. So yeah, with some planning, that burst damage is definitely pretty good here. I'm not disagreeing with it. I think it's a fine choice. Overall, like, this is the 2 options. Moonbow or Glimmer for more consistent damage, whereas Glacies is your more bursty choice every second fight. But not Iceberg. Don't use the 3 charge specials with Flashing Blade. Thanks, Exemplar. Defense Blade, yeah, it can work with her on the C slot, but be careful of that because you lower her support for the rest of the flyers on the team. So sometimes I don't really recommend that. Okay, so we're gonna look at a non-meta unit. Ooh, a Claire. So, unlike Sheeta, Claire is like the equivalent of Sheeta, but like a blue lance, right? And I guess a lot of people like make fun of Sheeta for not being good before she had Wing Sword. But even before she had Wing Sword, she was okay, right? Like some of you guys did think she was decent, right? Claire has good speed and good res, just like Sheeta, and low attack, just like Sheeta. The little difference though is Claire has a little bit more defensive bulk than Sheeta. I like Claire a lot. She was definitely one of my MVPs in my Shadows of Valencia run. Claire and Matilda down the road. I definitely want to make like a theme team, probably with Alm in there. Just like I had a theme team with Crom. Fury Desperation, good choice. You've used a 3-charge special, but this is actually not a good thing. Because you've reduced Slaying Lance down to 2-charge, right? So reducing it to 2-charge, it kind of doesn't work too good, because again, if you're in desperation range, all you're doing is charging your special and wasting it by not proccing it, and they might retaliate on you, and you just don't confirm your kills this way. So it's better if you either run Moonbow or Glimmer for a special every hit, or just like we saw with that Cheetah, you run Glacies for bigger burst damage every second combat. So again, same idea. Drive attack is interesting with guidance, so this is obviously a Claire that's put on a mixed team, and I think I would probably use a similar idea myself. Some sort of support buff on the C and the S being guidance. I think that's pretty strong. So yeah, the only thing you really need to change in this build is the special. It needs to be Moonbow or Glimmer, or it needs to be Glacies. Iceberg is awkward because once you're in desperation range, you end up wasting the special. Again, this applies to any of you guys with any flyers or any units for that matter. When you use desperation, consider the charge count on your special and how it interacts with combat. Let's see if there's another Claire to compare to. Oh, there it is. Yeah, comparing Iden's Claire to yours. See, this is what I mean. Different build, different style, also completely viable, and definitely am happy with it. I've kind of said something similar to, I believe it was Sonic Storm's Matilda, when it came to using Berkut's Lance. Like, this is really awkward because she's literally just like a soak or a sponge with low attack and no specials to proc. All you do is end up soaking damage and really just helping other units get into position. What really happens with this is a unit comes up to you, hits you, and especially because it's ranged, will likely get repositioned out or danced out of range, or danced into another unit, for instance. So that's kind of awkward. I kind of recommend instead of Distant Defense here, you run maybe Quick Riposte, and that would be pretty good. But even if you do that, you're still not getting Iceberg procs. You could actually run Quick Impulse, and I think that's better than Distant Defense. So like, if you don't secure your kills, is what I'm saying, you're gonna end up letting the enemy set up on you, and that's dangerous. So my advice to you, Iden, is definitely just give Quick Impulse so she can get at least that turn 1 Iceberg off. If you want to be even more consistent, less tanky, basically you change it to Slaying Lance, Iceberg, Distant Counter, and then you can keep this in defense, and then that way you get Iceberg off of every combat initiation. Of course, you lose out on the tankiness of Berkut's Lance, but again, you give her trade, right? So that's what happens. And again, this is completely viable, just like the other Claire that we saw. Both are really cool builds, and I beg you guys, stop making fun of Claire, because she has a role. It's just she relies on special damage to get kills. I know this because I use Niles, okay? The 0x2 is some pretty good Omega lulls. Okay, so that's the Claire comparisons. Thanks, guys. Let's look at some meta units. I would consider Tana to be a meta unit. There's plenty of Tanas tonight. Okay, so, interesting... Wait, how do you have Steady Stance 2 but you don't have 3? Oh no. Who did you kill for this? How could you not complete Steady Stance 2? 3. BK? But why not complete 3? You need 3. No. Oh, he used the 4-star BK. No. Okay, hopefully one day you can do the Steady Stance 3, because it's really good. Once you get Steady Stance 3, this is ideal actually, but you could also run Close Defense 3. Steady Breath doesn't work on Flyers, for those of you that don't know. But yeah, Steady Stance 3 is where it's at here. With Steady Stance 3, you get that real good defense. Close Defense 3 could be the change. For the B slot, I'm not 100% on board with Drag Back though, BWW. I think you should be running like Quick Riposte in the B slot, just to get a better enemy phase, because with Steady Stance and Close Defense, those are enemy phase skills, And drag back is more of a player phase skill. In fact, it is a player phase skill. You get out, right? So I think you should change it to QR and use her for what she should be, which is an enemy phase flyer here. In this case, she can run the player phase abilities, by the way. In fact, it seems like you know that already because you have the option of Fire Sleep Lance, which is a good thing with Luna and Life and Death. See, that's pretty good. Ideally, Life and Death 3. But yeah, definitely wanna. If you're going to use her enemy phase, change out the B slot for QR or Swordbreaker. Swordbreaker's pretty good. That's my only change for you, just the B slot. And then hopefully close defense 3 or steady stance 3 in the new future. Thanks, BWW. So yeah, Serendina. Let's look at your Vaulter. Okay, wow, real dedication to him. He has good physical bulk. So Life and Death is okay. Also, Curse Lance helps him enter Desperation range. Believe it or not. It lets him take some additional damage to get into Desperation range. You've also used a 2-charge special, which works really good with Desperation and Heavy Blade, which is what you've done. So overall, it's pretty good. So yeah, like Luna, because it's 2-charge, and Heavy Blade works the same as Moonbow if he didn't have that special reduction. So again, it goes from 2 to 0, 0 to ready, and then you just Luna something, which is pretty good. However, I feel like you might get more damage out of possibly Bonfire than you would out of Luna, which is kind of ironic because you're using Life and Death. So for you to get true usage out of Luna, you would have to fight units that have over 30 defense, which actually you might be targeting with him. I guess it depends on the matchups. So like for instance, if you fight him with Ephraim, that'd be pretty good. Maybe if you fight against like Ike or something. There are a couple of melee units with over 30 defense. Yeah, I like the build. It's fine. Fury's okay. I don't know. Honestly, you lose a lot of speed here that you might get yourself out of Desperation range. So I think Life and Death is okay. Just keep him away from magic. Shouldn't he be using Fort Fliers? Yeah, Mata does bring up a good point. I think Fort Fliers is better because the defensive flyers want to use home flyers and the offensive units want to give Fort Flyers. Unless his whole team is actually player phase oriented. This is a little bit of a misconception. So if you do have a bunch of melee flyers that are all player phase, then home flyers for everybody is okay. Like I guess 1 or 2 home flyers and then 2 goads is actually how you would do that. Overall though, it's a nice one, Serendina. I consider Hanoka kind of meta. She's pretty good now. She's really good now. Definitely super good. So you decided to run Gale Force here. Hanoka's Spear. So her attack and speed reach 38 and 55 attack. Hanoka's with Sanaki with Dry Speed. Okay, so she reaches 41 speed then, which is okay with Desperation. 38 Desperation with 41 with Drive Speed, which is what Chalky confirmed. But is she summoner supported? That's the real question, right? Not summoner supported. Huh. Maybe instead of TA, you should run Fury, in my opinion, to give her that extra speed that she needs to guarantee the doubles during Desperation. Because I don't really like TA. Like, she could really use the stats. Using TA really weakens her blue matchups. It weakens her green matchups. Need a better ace slot. This is plus defense minus Resinoka. That's fine though. Plus defense is really good with Fury. You'll bring up her defense to 32 that way. And then the higher speed can help you avoid some doubles and give you more attack. And actually bump up the res. So overall, like, Fury is going to work really well here. If you want to make her like more player phase oriented though, then Swift Sparrow is also pretty good because you're using Desperation anyways. So Swift Sparrow is also a good ace slot here. Deathblow though, no, not high enough speed for Deathblow. And Life and Death, I don't really recommend that one here because then you're really hurting her bulk. Gale Force is interesting. If you're using her on a non-flyer team, then it's pretty good. I mean, she has guidance and such. Thanks, Chalky. Okay, I do consider Noe to actually be non-meta. I don't see her that often. I like your creativity on this build because when I saw Halloween Noe myself, it's kind of like what I considered Grimoire and Escape Route. So by doing this, you actually have teleportation regardless of whether you're at high health or at low health. And I know some people are like, oh my god, why not just use Blade Tome because Blade Tome is really powerful with Noe, but this is more of like a supportive Noe, and it's actually really powerful. I don't know if you guys are watching during Schleppel's coaching where he did chain challenges 11 and 12, but there's some niche situations where you can use Grimoire to teleport into good positions, where you can buff up units with honed flyers to repo other units out, and of course with escape route you really do put yourself in that situation. Fury helps with her bulk, brings it up to a solid 60 defense and 61 resistance, which is actually pretty good. Draconic Aura is okay. It's going to be about 16-17 damage, which is better than Iceberg. If you do get some buffs like a Goad or a Hone from someone else, it ends up being even better. Weevil says Goad or Ward Flyers is better. Not necessarily. She's going to be beside units all the time with Grimoire, with Escape Route, and Guidance. Units beside her are definitely going to be buffed up. So I guess my question is, what's Guidance doing here? Black and Whale says, would attack Resbon be better then? You lose out on a lot of speed by doing that, where she could end up being doubled. Yeah, Placeholder Fury gets you an escape route range, which is also defensively, it's a good skill in A slot. I agree with it. Yeah, he said that Guidance is placeholder, so it's obviously not the ideal thing here. I know that Guidance is for armors and infantry. Is there a cap on spurs? No, drives and spurs can stack. Overall, like, I actually really like this Noe build, and if I have a Halloween Noe sometime in the future, I praise you for this and think I would definitely use the support of Noe just like this, because I already use Summercorn as my Blade Mage, and I think her tome is actually really unique, being able to teleport to other units and then possibly repo them out, buff them up, and escape route. Again, you have that teleportation everywhere. I just think it's really cool playstyle. So overall, like, well done, Sonic Storm. So we'll look at a meta unit again. Great Flame, Bonfire, Quick Riposte. Yeah, Quick Riposte in the B slot's really good. Fortress Defense is really great in the A slot. Hone Dragons, of course, is fine. She is a defensive unit, so putting Hone on her is very smart. One thing I'm very hesitant to say though is that Bonfire, again, doesn't really proc consistently, and she may miss kills, especially since she's running Fortress Defense. I think you should actually change Close Defense Seal into Quick Impulse here. That way you can get a turn 1 Bonfire. Like we also Sacred Seal IOs would be better. I don't know, man. It's not that good. If you're gonna put her on a dragon team, your checks for bow users are always going to be other dragons like Noe with Quick Riposte or Fae with Quick Riposte, and they target the lower stat of a bow user. Why does Myr need to be in range of a bow user? I don't think IO Shield is that good. Quick Riposte Seal with Renewal, not really needed. I do think Quick Impulse is good here. But yeah, my only recommendation is Quick Impulse on the Seal slot. That way you get consistent Bonfire damage, because if you miss the kill, you're in trouble again. Overall, solid build. I'll compare it to Jonas since he did confirm that he was here. Wrath with QR Seal. Wrath doesn't work on Fliers. So yeah, this is like the slightly different version. It's a little awkward because, first of all, Fury isn't too good for her because the speed stat is totally wasted, and because she's so bulky, she might end up taking like 0 damage from some units that you end up baiting out, and therefore like all you're doing is taking a lot of recoil damage instead. I don't really recommend Renewal 3 though, unless you're going for like Tempest Trials farming or chain challenges or something. That's the only real reason you get here. I kind of like Lilac's version a little bit better, but with Quick Impulse on the seal. So like Fortress Defense, Quick Riposte 2 or 3, and then Quick Impulse here, and that just makes her like solid, consistent, good damage to take out a lot of units. If you have this encounter, like that's obviously her best A slot, then IO Shield is fine for that reason, because then you have this encounter to bait out bow units. But otherwise, there's no point in running IO Shield if you don't have this encounter. There just is no reason to do that. If you have this encounter, then IO Shield is fine. And if you run her with other dragons, the other dragons should be checking bow units anyways. Yeah, like I said, Fury ends up being kind of detrimental to her because she ends up taking more recoil damage, and the speed stat is wasted on her. You could also just run Fortress Defense, like Quick Riposte, and Close Defense. If you think that she'll get doubled a lot, then Bonfire is fine, but you could even run Ignis with Quick Impulse and then like Close Defense. It really depends on the matchups you run her into, so just try to compare those two. The Renewal build is fine with IO Shield if you're gonna just like auto battle Tempest Trials or something. I hope that gave you some insight, JSF. Thanks Lilac and Jonah. Let's look at some non-meta. Brandon says, so my Baruka's got Fort Fliers, double S support, +6 defense resistance spur, which makes her able to tank almost every unit in the game. She doesn't die to most non-brave bow users. Maybe it's worth spending 20k feathers to give her QR3, so she can run my old shield, or just give her another merge. I do kind of like Renewal as it keeps her in the QR range, but she is my team's only counter for Bowies users. Yeah, that makes sense. Do you not have a player phase unit though? You would need to use a player phase unit to kill bow units and not really rely on distant counter to do that. I mean, it works, definitely works, and she's pretty good at doing it, but I think your build is fine as it is. But the problem is you do still die to like Ira and Zelgius. Don't keep that in mind, which is why Quick Repose Guard in the Beast Slot might be a little bit better than Renewal. You lose out on those two matchups. But yeah, like, meta bow units that you run into are very rare, to be honest. Like, the only ones I run into are probably Braveland, which you see all the time, which Baruka has no business disencountering. Then you have, like, maybe Halloween Jacob, but he's really rare too. So, I don't know, like, you don't really run into bow users that often. I guess you might start seeing Brave Boy next week when he's a bonus unit. But, again, like, so he doesn't, like, do you really need IO Shield just for Brave Boy? So I don't feel like IO Shield is that good in arenas. Bolin, like, yeah, all you're really doing is like baiting her out, and then she either gets, like, you bait her out, you take no damage, I guess, with IO Shield, and then she gets repositioned out or danced. You know, like, both of those situations aren't very good. I think my recommendation is like Guard if you really want to capitalize on all those. There's lots of things you can do, Brainless. There's a lot of things you can do, but you do die to Ira and you do die to Zelgius, even with all the buffs that you've come up with. Maybe not Ira. Maybe you don't die to Ira, but you definitely die to Zelgius. I do have Cordelia, so I can just use her for that. Yeah, and Cordelia does beat out Ira and Zelgius as well. Why is the Slaying Axe plus res? Because he has distant counter. My Baruka can actually kill both Ira and Zelgius in the game phase. I'm shocked that you can kill a Zelgius. Bold fighter Zelgius, really? I'll compare it to this Baruka. So yeah, this is actually kind of like what I was referring to, the contrast to your build, Brainless. So Guard, Quick Repose, as you can see. I think this is really powerful since the seal came out. And then instead of running distant counter, he went like full out on Fortress Defense and Slaying Axe on defense tile. Of course, your Baruka takes care of magic, which is kind of rare, but I think the reason here that it works like this is because your Baruka was summoner supported. Your Baruka also has like spurs and wards and stuff, fortify flyers. So yeah, that's just basically what I'm saying is this doesn't really require all that support, and this one can kind of just beat it as it is without worrying about a Black Luna or like a Regnal Astra. So this is like an independent Baruka, whereas yours, Brainless, is more like a has to be team supported kind of Baruka. I think that's the, like, with the summoner support and the ally stuff as well. Once you start getting in the higher arena ranks, you're going to start seeing more bold fighter Zelgiuses, and it's scary stuff. Overall, though, I like both your builds. It's not about, like, it's not objectively better, Brainless. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not forcing Guard upon you. I think it's just something you should consider if you feel like you're struggling against those units. And if you're not, then you don't have to, right? I use Guard on my Crom, so like I'm just saying, like, he with Quick Repose, so it's kind of similar. What I'm saying is, like, he beats Regnal Astra and Zelgius because they can't use their special on him, and he just ends up having like 42, 46, 48 defense, like that sort of support as well. And he's kind of the same idea. I need the support, like I need the ally beside him to activate the falchion. So it's kind of the same idea except red. Alright, so let's look at some meta units. So first of all, when you're using flyers, especially in a flyer team, make sure you're running reposition instead of ardent sacrifice. I know this is her default move, but yeah, definitely change this to reposition. Reposition opens up a lot of plays, so you can make movement ideas. If you've watched me do the Grand Hero battles, like the Infernal Grand Hero battles, you'll see that I'm able to reposition all the units out as they fight and jump around. Now, to do this as well, you do want to change flyer formation to drag back or hit and run, and that gives you that flexibility to move in and hit and run away. So this is especially important to you guys that don't have flyer mages, okay? Because it basically lets you attack like a ranged mage. You attack in melee range and then you get out. So you're attacking at the same range as a mage is, and then you can follow up with a bunch of repositions from the other flyers regardless of terrain and hit and run, basically. Get in there, get out. We've talked about this already. Moonbow is 2-charge special, but she has a brave weapon. She has a meaty. So what you're doing is not effective here. You're basically charging up Moonbow, you're not using it, and then they might retaliate on you and that could hurt, and you're also wasting the special charge. So what's better is either you change Moonbow to Luna, or you change your seal to Heavy Blade with Moonbow, or you change the seal to Quick Impulse with Moonbow. Those are the two options I'd recommend for you. So change the seal to match Moonbow, or change Moonbow to Luna and then just give her like an attack 3 seal instead. Both are fine options. I personally use the Luna with attack 3, attack 2 seal, and then reposition with the drag back here. That's my Valencia build, and that's definitely what I recommend for you to give you both mobility and consistency in the damage. So let's compare it to another Valencia. This works pretty well because what you're doing is you're charging Pavies for the retaliation. So the fact that you run life and death actually doesn't matter because you're reducing the retaliation damage by 50%. So this is actually extremely clever. I've run into this before. I ran into an Escutcheon, a Meaty before without Quick Impulse, and it was like I couldn't kill it on the counter attack. But yeah, like this is really cool with life and death. This is a creative way to do this. So I definitely praise you for it, Dressard, because the retaliation that you take is negligible and you just have some really solid damage both for quadding and for attack. It's really clever. I like it a lot. Overall, like super smart. Now, I'm guessing the double rally is for arena points. If that's for arena points, then I'm like, that's what you have to do for arena points. You have to make sacrifices, but ideally that's reposition. You probably already have repositions. You probably already know this. Or you don't. Well, okay, no, you should you should give a reposition, especially if you're doing some of the flyer quests. That's all. Well done, guys. Good Alencias. Good effort. Dressard says own flyers and rally defense resistances for buffing Blade Corn. I see that, but you could also do the same thing with fortify flyers, right? On another unit. Okay, so we're gonna look at non-meta. What does green HP mean? Green HP is like, it's supposed to be like a bug where it shows the boon. It happens to like Tharja, it happens to, I think, Soth for some stat or something like that. Solid support build on Camila, but it does have some issues that I'd probably recommend changing. One thing you really want to change here is probably the Brash Assault with likely something like Desperation instead of IO Shield. IO Shield's really awkward. Like, if you don't have this encounter, like what's the point in running IO Shield? All you're doing is really like soaking damage, not really doing anything but setting up enemy plays to either reposition their archer out or to dance their archer and they'll kill something else, right? So that's not gonna work. So yeah, like Brash Assault with Desperation would be pretty good, but the problem with that is you're running Speed Defense Bond, and Speed Defense Bond is like an enemy phase skill, while Brash Assault Desperation is a player phase skill. So I don't know if I really recommend that, like Brash Assault on CO, Desperation on B, so I don't think I recommend that much at all, to be honest. I think you're better off just running like Swordbreaker or Axebreaker instead, and then you can run like close defense on the seal, and then you just become like a super tanky kind of Camilla. As for the special, ideally that's like Bonfire or Moonbow, and I think you're good from there. It's a good support build for Camilla though, but definitely change out the B slot to something else. Like this is an awkward thing. If you're using Brash Assault under 50%, you might end up just dying. Like some units just kill you, right? So yeah, that's what I recommend. And don't use Ignis, it's too inconsistent, like it's too much charge for you to get it off. Let's compare it to Zargus. Okay, so this is like this build kind of contrasts yours. Yours was like more bulky, this is like the offensive version, and that's fine. She actually has pretty good offensive stats. Much better than Pala, but not on par with Alencia. But both of them are pretty hard to get anyways, so you just work with what you have, right? So you have that Fire Sweep sword. Life and Death 2 is not ideal. I mean, Soth comes to colorless. Hopefully you do get some colorless and bring it up to LND 3 soon enough. And Hidden Run's good. Definitely good here because you don't have as much bulk as the other one does. And good on you to use Draconic Aura. Again, 3 charge specials are important when you're running weapons that you double with, like Brave Lance or Fire Sweep Sword, of course. So for the seal, I'd recommend just something simple like the Speed Seal if you want to guarantee your doubles, or the Attack Seal if you feel like you're getting enough flyer buffs to guarantee those doubles. I like that you guys are showing me the contrast in the defensive and the offensive builds. This is really great. So you guys, all of you guys, definitely should pat yourself on the shoulder because this is some good stuff. I'd love to see this variety, and hopefully it can give you guys, you know, that sort of contrast and how you can build units, because it's not always this is how you do it, boom, this is how it's done. It's more of looking at the build that you're showing me, guys, and then improving it in what way I can do that. just based on, you know, experience of using these sort of things. Either way, solid build, so good job. Just give her just like an attack or speed seal and upgrade to life and death 3 at some point, you're good to go. So out of all the units we've looked at tonight for non-meta, we haven't actually looked at any Cordelias. So let's look at a Cordelia. Oh boy. Okay, so you're running Brave Lance Gale Force with Heavy Blade. I don't necessarily agree with this unless you use Heavy Blade in the A slot and Quick Impulse in the Seal slot, and I'll explain why that doesn't work. So if you use Heavy Blade, let's say you kill with Brave Lance, all you're doing is bringing Gale Force down to 1 charge instead of ready. If the unit counterattacks you, there's no point in using Heavy Blade, because then you might, actually you're not going to quad. What the heck? What happened here? It's because you're using TA. And then Heavy Blade with 46 attack. Oh my god. I recommend using Life and Death then, or Swift Sparrow. One of those two are definitely needed here, especially with flyer buffs. I know you were gonna say she's on a flyer team, but even if you give her like 1 gold, she's still only 34 speed or 50 attack, which is still pretty low. And even if you gave her Hone Flyers, 56 speed and then 40 speed, sorry, 56 attack and 40 speed is like still, it's still kind of awkward. So yeah, I feel like you should change it to Life and Death or Swift Sparrow. I did see that you said Fire Sweep Lance, and yeah, once you do that, I still recommend changing the A slot to exactly that. Like, TA is really weird. I know it's on her default kit, so you probably just kept the default kit, but yeah, change it to Life and Death 3 or Swift Sparrow. Now, as for the Seal, I don't think you should keep it if you intend to keep Gale Force, because with Fire Sweep Lance, again, it goes down to 1 charge instead of ready right away. So maybe consider changing it to Moonbow or Glimmer if you want a special every hit, or you could use something like Dragon Fang if you want a special every 2nd hit with Heavy Blade, or you could just go for something more consistent like Speed 3, and then you're good to go with like Draconic Aura. There's a little bit of refinements needed here, but you definitely need to understand all these things to make those changes. Just don't use TA, and I don't recommend Gale Force unless you want to use Heavy Blade Quick Impulse. Yeah, it was a placeholder. So you do confirm that TA was indeed a placeholder. No problem, Punk Rose. I'm going to compare it to Sean's Cordelia. See, there you go. Boom, this is exactly what I meant. Just look at it. That's all you need to do. I don't need to say anything. Like, this is what you should change your Cordelia to. And anyone else who's thinking of doing Cordelia, this is a good way to make her happen. Good job, guys. We make good examples out of things. Spicy Daddy says, Brave Lance is so fun to use though. I agree, I use Brave Lance on my Cordelia. So let's look at another non-meta. Okay, so this is pretty standard. One little difference between this is you run Axe Breaker here instead of Quick Riposte. So if you're not running Quick Riposte, you could miss some kills on Bravelyn. Actually, maybe you don't. No, I think you still one-shot Bravelyn, unless she's on a defense tile. So I guess you can use Axe Breaker as like a player phase ability. Give her some viability against the same color. Looks like you have G-Tone Breaker as well, Axe Breaker, and Vantage, which you can use pretty well with Ground Blade. Good on you to use IO Shield though, because with the Super Bane and defense, you're really suffering here. If you didn't use that IO Shield, Braybo Lins could actually kill you, especially in combination with Reinhardt. So overall, I think it's pretty much fine. I think unless a Bravelyn is buffed with Fortify Cavalry, you should still one-shot her. She has enough attack to one-shot, especially if you have a gold Flyers activated. Of course, remember, Hone Flyers doesn't work because of Mulligear. A Quick Riposte could be pretty good as well, if you want to just focus on enemy phase baiting. It's a good one. Alright, meta time. Yeah, I looked at a similar Tana earlier, and I kind of recommended the same thing here. So Hit and Run is like a player phase ability, whereas Close Defense and like Vidofner and the double Close Defense is like, it just doesn't make sense, I guess. You're kind of just wasting the V slot. So I feel like you definitely should run QR here, or Swordbreaker, for instance. If you run Swordbreaker, you can guarantee that she doesn't die to like Ira and Zelgius, because her defenses get cut if she's fighting like a bold fighter Zelgius. Whereas if you're running like QR, like you'll die to those units. But if you're on Swordbreaker, she shouldn't, because they won't charge the special. Also keep in mind as well that if you don't proc off Bonfire, you could miss the kills as well. on those units, because 60 attack isn't enough. Even with like color advantage isn't enough to really kill like a Zelgius that has like 40 defense. So if you want to secure the kills, then you probably want to use Moonbow instead of Bonfire. Or you could change close defense to quick impulse with like Swordbreaker, and that'll secure those kills. Assuming that this is for arena. It's still not too bad if you want to charge Bonfire for player phase, but that's only if you can consistently get the kills. I assume she's not on a Flyer team because you're using guidance, and therefore you'd have to either rely on team support to secure those kills, or you'll have to change the build just around a little bit to secure the kills through Swordbreaker, Quick Riposte, or Quick Impulse with Bonfire. Hopefully that helps you a little bit. Hit and run is just, you're wasting like 3 abilities, kind of making that work. Pala not meta? No, not with Alincia, New York Camila, and Sheeta now getting buffed as well. Pala's kind of fallen off a bit. I don't think she's bad, I just don't think she's not as good. It's kind of like a player phase Pala, because you're using drag back, but you also have some enemy phase utility with Fury 3. It's actually pretty interesting. I think for the seal, you might want to consider like a speed 3 seal, because her speed's pretty good. This looks like a plus speed Pala maybe. And if you bring her speed up to 40 and give her like Hone Fliers or Goad Fliers, she'll really utilize that well. Boopster says, Akariss, what is described as a meta unit? Good question, Boopster. Basically what I describe as a meta unit is a unit that I see in arenas very commonly, usually a unit that's higher up on your typical tier list, so that's going to be like Gamepedia and Game Press. Usually I consider those to be meta units. And then everything that's not that is basically non-meta. Even some units that you might see higher on the tier list, you just don't see them in arena that often, maybe because of availability. So like Halloween Noe isn't necessarily a bad unit, but I still think that she's non-meta because you don't really see her that much, or people don't invest in her. I think the only real change I'd recommend for you here might be the seal slot changing to like speed 3, but if you don't want to run that, you could also run with like a enemy phase Pala. And I kind of do this myself. I run like a close defense with like Axe Breaker or Sword Breaker, and this works really well with Moonbow and Ruby Sword. I think if you use Ruby Sword, then maybe Axe Breaker is a little bit better. That's my only recommendations for you. Instagrip greens with 3 goats to make sense. Yeah, so I think Sword Breaker would be pretty good here, so you can cover the weaknesses on enemy face if you want to do that. I'm not saying you have to. I think Dragback is always a good choice for Fliers. Overall, I think it's pretty good. Pretty solid choice.